And welcome back to Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar, episode 51. Crossing over the threshold. I hope you enjoyed the last episode. That was a very special one for me. I did get some lovely feedback on it, so thank you for that. We are in an undisclosed location today. And if you're wondering, yes, I do have multiple paintings of mine that feature in an auxiliary role, the Ford Aerostar. So this is another one. Had to keep the Aerostar in there, got the Ford hat on, so we're doing our best, even though we're sort of here and there, to, keep the Aerostars, cruising down into the cosmic universe for you all. Something very nice today. We're a little bit of a theme going on. Obviously, you can see my red shirt here, and so that will give you a little preview to the aesthetics of this one. So let's get right into it, shall we? Here we have a 1994 Ford Aerostar extended window minivan, listed for just $1,800 in Bassett, Virginia. Virginia is for lovers, and what better vehicle to tool around in with your lover than a Ford Aerostar? Obviously in this lovely red color. Again, sometimes I bemoan the fact that Ford did not make like a fire engine red for these vehicles, but I actually think, especially with the gray two-tone here, that this is quite a lovely little package here. And we're seeing more of these recently, which are these like sort of moldings on here. I never really noticed these on Aerostars, but I'm seeing them more and more. It's not just a pinstripe, it's actually like a three-dimensional physical tacked on piece of molding. I really think it looks quite nice. And this just sort of has a great little aesthetic to it. 94, interesting year. I have a 1993. So this checks off all the boxes for me in an Aerostar that I would buy, because I'm trying to buy one of every year. So I don't have a 94, it checks that box off. I don't have an extended version Aerostar, and I've been really into the extendeds lately. I'm really sort of want to get an extended Aerostar because the standard lengths are great. I love how they look. I love the sort of stance of them, the compactness, but I've always wanted to sort of go for the big one too, and have like an extended full-size version and get the feeling of what that's like to drive it. Does it feel any different? And just the extra space too. You got that much more space in it. So I've been really smitten with the extendeds, and I don't have one in red, and so this comes in red, and I really do quite like the two-tone, because the gray on your two-tone area here matches perfectly the bumper covers. You didn't see that too often. A lot of times you had the gold or these like sort of blue on blue, but then the bumpers were still gray. So I really like just the very sort of simple, it's sort of Spartan, but sort of dressed up at the same time. Now this is a passenger minivan, so we should probably read the description. Great work van, as I say passenger van. Still have the two bench seats that go in it. Just put tires on it in May. Had the radiator flushed and brake work done. Only serious inquiries, please. Well, I can respect that. Please leave a message and I'll get back to you ASAP. Presumably Virginia, it's seen little to no snow and salt and ice and all that. It does look pretty clean and very little, if any, rust on this vehicle. Some features of jank that I would like to point out. First of all, you have all sorts of weird clear coat fade going on. It looks like everything got clear coat faded except the top half of the door panel, and then sort of the top half of the window, and then you can see how the clear coat sort of fades into the front side of your upper door there. So very, very funny how the clear coats kind of went on these. So you have this one little red patch and it almost elbows up at this 90-degree angle along the back side of your door and your driver's side window. I think that looks really, really nice. Your wing mirror here, obviously the front cover is missing, so that's a little bit of jank for you. And down below we see the bumper is starting to maybe just come off a little bit. Now there's a lot of these, I believe they're called captured bolts in here. Where there's like a nut on it, but it's sort of buried and you can't really get to it. So the only way to take it out is to it's sort of an arduous process. You got to, tinker around with it and get your socket in there and find where it grabs and then twist it out, and then getting it back in, obviously not easy too. Now, I've never removed a front bumper cover, but I have removed a rear bumper cover, and a little bit of a challenge, but perhaps that could be tightened up with not too much effort. A great feature and less janky is that we have alloy wheels, the factory alloy wheels, and these are very nice. And this leads me to believe that maybe this is like a an XL or an XLT or something with alloy wheels. Maybe it even has the 4.0 engine in it. We don't know. But being extended, even if it's not all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, and we don't know here, presumably it's rear-wheel drive because they don't tell us. So you'd think if it was four-wheel drive, they would, advertise that fact. Also, there'd probably be badging here saying electronic four-wheel drive. Now, that could have come off, but we don't know. But the fact that it has the alloy wheels, that's sort of an upgraded package. But the jankiness is these center caps have either completely faded or been replaced at some point with a different center cap, which is odd to me. But very nice wheels, I think. Sort of a kind of a slicer style. I always compare them to the C4 Corvette wheels, where they have this, like, even when they're standing still, they look like they're moving. Not a ton of airflow coming through here, but I like that. I love alloy wheels that not resemble steel wheels, but that are a lot of alloy. Nowadays you get these tiny little spikes on these like 20-inch wheels, and it shows off the brake calipers, and you can paint your brake calipers, and I get it. It's like real flashy, and from a practical standpoint, I think it probably, delivers more airflow in there for cooling your brakes. However, you look at a lot of old supercars, the Bugatti EB110, the Jaguar XJ220, a lot of old Mercedes, and they have these Lamborghinis. They have these alloy wheels, but there's very small, maybe sometimes there's a lot, but they're very small, actually, holes in the wheels to show off the brake calipers and all that stuff. And I really like that style. I don't know why. Maybe it's the nice shiny finish of the alloy, but the sort of visual aesthetic of a steel wheel where you just have like a lot of sort of smaller holes. So quite a fan of these alloy wheels. I would probably get maybe some center caps with a blue oval in them, or try to color them somehow so they matched a little bit better. But certainly a very small nitpick there. Not even a nitpick, really, a celebration of jankiness. All right, moving on. Again, it looks to be in really nice shape. Now, I didn't say the mileage on this vehicle. It's 124,000. So in the grand scheme of things, pretty low. Almost a 30-year-old vehicle with only 124,000 on it. Pretty good. It looks to be in very nice condition. And this side of the car, for whatever reason, maybe it's just the light, but looks like the paint has held up a little bit better. Your window seals now, you have this little rubber falling down right here, if you can see that. That's very common on these, but overall the window seals still look like they have some shine to them. They don't look like they're all like caked and dry rotted. Virginia's kind of a good area because it's not like Alabama or somewhere like really far down south, Florida, where the sun just like beats on it all the time. And yet it's not like New York or New Hampshire or Vermont, where corrosion is just a major issue. So I would say Virginia, a very good place to buy a vehicle. Even your door handles look like they still have, the plastic doesn't look completely baked. It still has good color to it. It's not all faded. So all these are small indications that this vehicle, has been fairly well preserved. Let's keep going on here. Another thing, as I point out that the bumper's all cracked here, but this is pretty minor. I just got a comment on TikTok, and feel free to follow us on TikTok at afjanky. These bumpers were so brittle, and it just seems to be like a narrative that's popping up recently. I've expressed interest in trying to somehow 3D scan and make like new aftermarket bumpers. It's like, if someone beats me to it, feel free, because I'll buy them from you. But it's a sort of a project that I'm thinking of taking on as an endeavor, because I do think there's a market out there for them. They're getting so hard to find, and if you can find one, they're going for like $500-$600. Not to mention, even though the fronts are all the same, the rears you had like 4 different possible combinations, because you had your standard length lift gate, you had your standard length cargo, and then you had your extended length lift gate and your extended length cargo. So there's 4 different bumpers that you would have to possibly get and find the right one for your Aerostar. And because there's so much variation, it just means the individual amounts for each particular bumper are going to be lower. So I think that it'd be very tough to piece this back together, but I think it's intact enough that you could probably figure out a way to either put some plastic or like some thin sheet metal, and you'd have to do a little work, but if you bent it, you know, just the right way, you could probably get it in there well enough to make that look presentable and decent. In the rear, again, you have some cracking and things are just sort of completely falling apart. But again, and these are like just nice flat sections. Don't have like a ton of like curves or bevels into them. So you could probably, I mean, worst case scenario, just build up the Bondo really good. Maybe put a backfill in there and then lay the Bondo on it. I did use a little bit of Bondo on my rear bumper of my 86 that I got from my other 86. And here, sure enough, look at that XLT badging on there. I do love this Virginia license plate with the cardinal on it. Also just happen to love the ZT. That's pretty cool there. I would hopefully try to salvage those plates out of the deal if I bought this Aerostar. So it's the XLT package. I have to do a little bit more research on what exactly the different packages entailed, but I would assume, you know, bigger engine options and alloy wheels were two of the first things on the in terms of the mechanicals, and then interior, maybe you got some more advanced heads-up display or you know, your trip computer overhead there. I should do some more research into that. Another sort of hairline crack on the bumper here. That's very, very common. And as you can see, we still do have these chrome little accents in the bumper, but they don't have the like sort of tritone strip, where a lot of the earlier ones were sort of this like middle strip here was a little bit painted in a different color. I kind of like the monochromatic bumpers myself. So, you know, you see all sorts of Aerostars where this entire one side of the section, either left or right, is just completely ripped off, or the entire bumper itself is missing. It was just a common issues on these things. A minor thing really, because, you know, it's still just a bumper cover. It's not the actual bumper itself. But aesthetically, it really is missing something when it doesn't have those bumpers on there, because they really tie the whole design together. We do have a little bit of an interior shot. Again, the two-tone seats I always talk about, two different fabrics, two different colors, and even when they are the same color, they still have some variation. And obviously the red piping here, excuse me, really looks quite dapper, I think, on the red exterior Aerostars. I think it just looks phenomenal. Looks like you do have your power windows, power locks. So all that was probably part of the XLT package. You know, this was back in the day where, like, even on my 93 Sport, which is a package that was chosen, you know, it's not like your base model Aerostar, it still has crank windows. So, you know, back in this era, things like power windows and power locks and power seats and all that stuff like that were still very much an option that you could check, as opposed to something that came standard. And I really think the Korean manufacturers, in particular Hyundai and Kia, were really big about making all those sort of once luxuries standard features even on their base model cars. And now if you buy a little Hyundai Elantra or something, you're going to get power everything, you know. But back in the day, it was sort of an option, and I like that, because I love the option of having crank windows, and I do have them on both my Aerostars, which I enjoy. But, you know, I do like the automatic transmission on my 93, and one day, I think, again, you know, checking off boxes of things I don't have on my Aerostars, I do not have one with the power windows, and I absolutely love the window switches, the color-coded window switches, another just almost Aerostar exclusive thing that they did, which I really, really appreciate. Just a very simple Spartan interior, but I love that, you know, in this very angular Aerostar, they have all these curves and swoops and sort of like bubbles that are going on. I love all the switches. I love the center console. And when you're sitting in there, you get this nice rounded off curve. It's sort of a signal of what was to come for Ford, because this little profile of the center console here just screams out, you know, Ford Taurus, the bubbly Ford Taurus. I think those Ford Tauruses in that generation, they facelifted it, but the original ones, I think they're around like, you know, 96 to 99 or something like that. I think they shouldn't have messed with it. I thought that design was so perfect. And then, of course, they make the lights bigger. The headlights just keep getting bigger. Although now the trend is to make headlights really tiny and small. But at that time, headlights were getting bigger and bigger. I think those first bubbly Ford Tauruses were so well judged. And this is sort of like a, you know, like I said, a signal of what was to come. So you have this lovely sort of, you know, just the shape of it, like it's very, just the molding to print this piece must have been like pretty interesting in how they designed it. And it's very, in opposition to the first pre-facelift interior on the Aerostars, where everything was like very boxy and you just had this giant, like you see in a lot of old sports cars actually, Ferraris and my Fiat X19, a lot of Lotuses, they just like took this giant box, they just stamped it in there, it just like kind of sat on top of everything. This looks much more integrated and it just flows, it undulates. It's a beautiful landscape to sort of sit in front of you while you're driving the vehicle, and still very, very functional and very practical too, which is obviously the Aerostar's calling card. I like the steering column mounted shifter, and again, it's got this nice little beautiful swoop and bend to it, so just adding to the sort of visual dynamics of what's going on there. It would be cool to have a floor-mounted automatic transmission. That's another box I have not checked off yet, but I like the column-mounted shifter. It's you know, it's very practical, and there's something about, you know, shifting on the column that's kind of fun. So, only one interior picture. I do love the gray interior, little black accents, and again, the red piping just sets off the red exterior, as you can see here. Now, you know, a little PSA here. It's for my own purposes, kind of. Like, I'd like to be able to make thumbnails of these videos and stuff, and I like to have a completely clean shot. But there's also something about it when you're looking at a vehicle online, you just want to see the whole thing, you know. And when the back and the front are cropped out here, I like to do a head-on shot, profile shot, three-quarter shot from front and rear, straight rear shot. And that way, you know, you can just kind of look at this thing. And I get it, sometimes space is tight. And certainly these are, you know, I'm very appreciative that there are multiple photos of this vehicle from every angle and a shot of the interior. But, you know, I would advise people, if you're ever selling a vehicle, just get the entire vehicle in the frame of the picture. It really goes a long way in helping the potential buyer visualize what exactly they're getting. I really love the front though, boy. You know, the red, even this dark sort of semi-burgundy red's really, really growing on me. And I've been looking at a couple of red extended Aerostars lately, and that's sort of just been like, you know, what I'm lusting after in particular. So I thought this was a good one to highlight today. And being down in Virginia, I got some family down in Virginia. You know, the wheels are sort of spinning on how to go about acquiring this Aerostar. Now, winter's coming, and you know, the bills are racking up, and you know, to just take away the potential possibility of me bringing something like this home, I will not be buying this Aerostar, you know, unless my fortunes change dramatically in the next 30 days. But it certainly is, you know, I think I'm honing in on what, if and when I acquire another Aerostar, I'm able to perhaps sell some other cars. I think this is sort of where we're going. A red extended, if I could get that to be an all-wheel drive, all the better. We looked at that red with a red interior down in North Carolina, I believe. That would certainly be a candidate if it's still around next spring, just because that red interior is stunning. But I like this is sort of like, this would be like maybe this and the Hunter Forest Green Aerostar would be something you'd see in a brochure for the Ford Aerostar. It's sort of a quintessential Aerostar model. This would, in the 90s, you would have seen these all over the roads, ferrying people and goods to and from, making money for business people, and making memories for families. So just a quintessential Aerostar here. By all accounts, you know, it's had some recent service maintenance done. You know, don't overlook tires. A lot of times when you buy a used vehicle, you're going to have to put tires on it. And that's not a small expense. You know, you're going to have to pay, at the minimum, $300-400 for a decent set of tires, maybe more if you're going to get like sort of a Michelin or a Goodyear or a Cooper or a Continental or something like that. And then you're going to have to get them mounted and balanced. And a lot of times to put a set of tires on is going to cost you another $130, $150. So that's a pretty decent chunk of change. So if it's had recent tires put on, I always think that's a good sign. Also, it just means that people are taking care of their vehicles in a very basic way. And the fact that it's had brake work done to it, the radiator flush, the new coolant put in it, presumably. These are all small things that really prolong the life of a vehicle and that many people neglect. So I think, in terms of that, it really would be a candidate to buy as like an older used vehicle. And for an asking price of only $1,800, again, go find like a good, decent running vehicle that's had recent service done and new tires for less than $2,000. It's very, very tough to do. And with the Aerostar, you're not going to get great mileage. This says 14 highway, 14 city, 19 highway, 16 combined, which makes me think that maybe it is the 4-liter engine in here, which would be cool because they're known as pretty durable engines, and they got, they're pretty torquey. You see them in a lot of Ford Rangers. Now in the Aerostar, you got a little bit more weight you're pushing around. But still, like, I would love to drive a 4.0 because I would like to compare it to the 3 and see if it really does have that extra oomph to it. Even with rear-wheel drive, you could still tow with this vehicle. Obviously you'd love the 4-wheel drive for the handling, and if you were going to drive it in winter, put some snow tires on it, and this thing would be probably a beast. I've heard many people say that. I've seen videos of Aerostars versus other vehicles in hill climbs with snow tires, and the Aerostars, performed quite well, even against more modern all-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive, smaller SUVs, sort of passenger vehicles that people buy these days. So that's just another feather in the Aerostar's cap. Looks like you have maybe a slight window tint here, but I don't know, something about this one. It just sits right, as Jay Leno said. And boy, like this news about Jay Leno being in a gasoline fire and getting burns, really heartbreaking. So, our thoughts go out to Jay Leno and his family right now, and hope he's doing all right. He's a tough cookie, and it sounded like there was a quote attributed to him saying he's going to be back in a couple weeks. So on that note, it's fairly topical, but I reference Jay Leno all the time. So certainly a luminary, to use Doug DeMuro's words in the automotive world, and all the best to him. But as he likes to say, sometimes a car just sits right, and this one certainly sits right to me. And the price is right, the location's not bad. Again, like I always say, if there's any independently wealthy individuals who would like to buy this vehicle and then owner finance it to me, perhaps we could work something out. I'd much rather give my money to a private individual than to a bank. You could be part of an Aerostar acquisition story. So there you have it. A beautiful, really striking, just lovely Ford Aerostar in this beautiful sort of mid cranberry color, boy, look at all that space. I don't know if we looked at this picture. The extended version, it really does buy you a little bit more real estate. You can see where the tracks are for the seats, and even behind this last bench seat. So that's your second bench seat, and you go back and there's still a ton of room behind there. Again, 4x8 sheet, 4x8 foot. I might have just said a naughty word there accidentally. 4x8 foot sheets of plywood fit fully in this vehicle, and you can close the hatch, and that is another feather in its cap. Looks like we do have like a panel missing here. It's been like somewhat cargoized, DIY cargoized. Now I wonder if this block of wood is actually holding up the seat in some capacity, or that's just your stopper for when you put cargo in there. Just acres of room in this thing. And it looks like it has been being used as a work van, but the bench seats are still included with it. Again, that's another, if you want to go out and buy bench seats, first you got to find them, and then, you got to pay for them. So the fact that those are included is another just added value to this vehicle. And, the carpets are all stained. These things were used as work vehicles, or even, whether you're loading cargo or kids, they're both extremely dirty. So, but certainly no shame. It just means it's had, a good hard life. Interior is still in fairly good shape though, and I love how you have these little red sort of leatherette accents. Just adds a little panache, a little flair, a little luxury to the vehicle. And of course we can see up here you have your audio controls for the passenger. Looks like we even have some rear ventilation for air conditioning or heat, which is very, very nice. All occupants of the Aerostar are considered when riding in or driving the vehicle. Really appreciate that. Just a real looker, and a very capable one at that. So there you have it. Another one in the books, Year of the Aerostar, here on Janky AF. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to this channel and you like this video, we'd love a subscribe, clicking of the button leave a comment. We love to interact with everybody. I try to respond to every single message that people write, comment that people leave, and there's a real sort of Aerostar community growing, and I can tell you from our interactions with the community, it's a very fervent bunch. And I really appreciate that. It warms my heart that there's other people, other enthusiasts out there for this vehicle, an unheralded, unsung hero of the automotive world in the 80s and 90s. There you go. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you on the next one, and until then, Janky do thanky.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.